Welcome to Berlin, Germany, home of the 2019 LEC season. The star-filled roster of G2 Esports is rising up as the new top team in Europe, and tonight they go up against SK Gaming to kick off the week. Be interesting to see whether or not SK can stand toe-to-toe with the undefeated G2 Esports. Welcome, everybody. I'm Trevor Quickshaw-Henry, joined already checked by Indiana Frostcrew in black, as well as Andrew Vedius Day. Welcome to the show.
Hello.
Is this what we do now?
Yes, I am British and we bow.
We bow. Okay, welcome. That's not quite where I was going to go with it, but whatever. After 2 weeks of action, there's only one undefeated team, as I've mentioned. It's G2. Now, they are followed suit by a host of squads in second, including Misfits, Schalke, Splyce, Vitality. It's a pretty competitive middle of the table right now.
Top of the table, quick shot. They're all fighting for that first place spot right now. Look at that. 3-1 is the scoreline. Each of them kind of losing games to one another, and all waiting for that opportunity to take a shot at the king to try and take that first place spot.
And it's not like G2 haven't had their own few punches and rocked with them. You know, Excel there definitely took a swipe at G2, did draw some blood, but unfortunately weren't able to actually make it count on the scoreboard.
Yeah, definitely the hardest game that G2 has had to win thus far has been against XL Esports. And I'm going to take a bold statement here. G2 are probably the best team in Europe right now.
I think you're pretty safe in saying things like that, quick shot.
If you look at their players, they have carries in every single role. They have threats absolutely everywhere. And they are becoming an absolute monster in the eyes of the LEC.
This team is just ridiculous. Just have a look at some of the numbers on your screen. You can see the goal difference at 15, their damage per minute, and note how they're either ranked first or second in every single position. It is absolutely ridiculous how stacked this lineup is, and their ability to get advantages in the early game, their ability to snowball, their flexibility in the draft. This team just seems to have it all.
In traditional sports, there's this idea that sometimes you are just bigger, faster, stronger, better, and you can actually just outrun, wear down your opponent, and beat them through brute force. Now, in esports, obviously, it's not the same athleticism, but I think G2 is probably the closest example of that. They are simply bigger, better, faster, stronger players, and they smash you in the lane phase with their mechanics.
But surely, Frost, there has to be some sort of weakness to that, because if, for example, this team is just simply better pound-for-pound players, where do we see them practicing and developing some of the strategic calls, some of the closer games? You know, that matchup against XL, they were supposed to be bigger, better, faster, scarier, and they almost got punked on, looking pretty daft in terms of how XL nearly took them down.
Until it came to the 1v9 carry by Caps, because he's just entitled because he's that good. No, I understand what you're saying, and that's kind of the big concern. You know, longtime G2 fans, they're going to say, okay, if we think MSI, and if this team makes it...
Try not to.
Exactly. Then suddenly maybe pump the brakes a little bit, because we really haven't seen any sort of strategical or macro depth outside of the creativity in their draft, because they simply haven't been challenged yet. They haven't had to rely on their chessboard strategy to outmaneuver opponents.
And that's one of the big things you look at for G2. You'd like to think that after coming close to losing to XL, they'll look to show more respect to the rest of their opponents. But I like the fact they're being creative in their drafts. They are trying a wealth of different stages of the split. More teams will be able to challenge and rival that level of skill.
I hope so. And right now, one of the teams that's not going to stand up and rival them, one of the teams that was undefeated and maybe as dominant last year's Fnatic. 0-4 after 2 weeks. This is the world finalists. We've said it a whole bunch. They're in last place. They made the roster swaps, as we've already touched on, that keystone, the cornerstone player of Caps. And I am just still flabbergasted that this team seems to be floundering and really struggling to find their feet.
And what's really concerning is that you can't seem to pinpoint exactly where the problems are going wrong.
Yeah.
A lot of people looked initially at Nemesis. If you look at Nemesis' numbers, especially in his most recent performance, it was fine. You look at Broxa, maybe you're not getting the same playmaking. Blippo's dying a lot in lane. I think across the board, even Reckless and Hilly having that awful game versus Schalke in that bot lane, I think holistically it's all of Fnatic dropping the ball, which could mean good things that maybe if you just tighten up that synergy, they return to form.
What just surprises me so much about Fnatic is why they don't just rely on what they found so much success with last year. Even though Caps is gone and Nemesis is in place, you should hope to expect that Nemesis can still carry a game.
Yeah.
In Europe, we have so many talented mid laners, and even if Nemesis can't do what Caps did, put resources into him. Be Broxa and the Hillesite of last split that enabled that mid laner to do so many fantastic things.
Let's see if they can. Of course, it's 0-4. It's an 18-game regular season. We've talked a lot about the #1 and now the #10 team. Let's also paint a quick light on Origen. Not living up to expectations, the organization history, the names behind the org, as well as the players on the Rift. It's going to be interesting to see what Origen can do to bounce back, because they should be performing better, especially after they took Fnatic down. They gave us a lot of hope in terms of what their level could be.
I mean, it feels like Origen have all the right ideas. We've complimented their drafts. We think that they have the right style, but it's just not executing. And frankly, it's almost the complete opposite problem that Fnatic have. If Fnatic are dealing with those growing pains of finding that synergy, you know, reinventing the wheel or going back to their old style, Origen simply just are mechanically failing across the board. Solo deaths everywhere.
So listen, we started the day by taking a look at the standings. We've talked at the top of the table. We've looked at the bottom of the table. Vedius, I'm going to turn to you now and ask you to dive in a little bit into these teams competing in the upper echelons of LEC.
Yeah, so we're going to be looking at some teams in particular. And our first one is XL Esports. This team fought the current #1 team, G2, with everything that they had, forcing one of the closest games of the split. While their team fighting was strong, unfortunately, Caps was just simply stronger. However, this team exceeded all expectations. And going up against Misfits today, the underdogs cannot afford to be underestimated. Now, our next team to watch is Vitality. The third-place squad from 2018 summer seems to be back, as they dismantled the dominant Misfits. The Italian stallion Jizuke got back on the horse, as his LeBlanc paired up with the classic Attila Draven to cement destruction into their opposition. They take on Origen and Rogue this week and look to keep the gap close from their future opponents G2. The final team to watch is Schalke. With mixed expectations coming into the split, the team ended week 2 in dominant fashion. Their game versus Fnatic was particularly impressive, as Upset and Ignor obliterated Reckless and Hylissang, converting duo kills into explosive team fights, and even a quadra for Upset cements Schalke as another team battling for the top. Their match against Splyce later in the day is one that you guys are certainly not going to want to miss.
No, absolutely not. Definitely looking forward to it. And of course, seeing as though we're into week 3, and you know, this is the right time to make broad sweeping statements, I'm going to look at our all-pro team. I asked my 2 analysts to put together their #1 players per role, and the group that we've come together with is Soaz, Maxwell, Caps, Upset, and Ignor. Now, of these players, only Caps was voted in our pre-season pro player poll to be the #1 in his role. So why has everyone else stepped up?
I think it's fair to say, firstly, Caps. Always have to get that out of the way. Best player in Europe, of course, he's going to be in the mid lane. Then the other thing is you maybe look towards the top side. I think there was a lot of competition. For me, Soaz, just holistically across the board, has been so consistent. In his laning phase, in his team fight, in the shot calling, he's just kind of that intangible all package.
But I do know that you had a couple question marks around that bot lane quick shot.
I don't. To me, they're the best bot lane in Europe. And you throw that at me. You weren't that hyped about Ignor.
Yeah, okay, I'm definitely trying to move it away.
Don't try to push your flame onto me now.
Yeah, I was very skeptical of Ignor coming in. I didn't think he had a great performance last year. I felt like he could only play one style of champion, but pairing him up with Upset, they seem to be phenomenal team fighters as a duo. They seem more than capable of building their own leads in lane consistently, and I have just been so impressed with what this duo has been able to achieve that right now, I think they sit at the top.
Yeah, and before you at us, this was a very competitive and close race. It simply really was, for me, at least that Fnatic game that put Ignor and Upset over the threshold.
Over the threshold, okay. At Froskurin, at Riot Vedius, where is Gorilla? Where is Cabochard? Where is Jizuke? Actually, here's a better one. Where the hell is Jankos? Why is it Maxlaw over Jankos?
So for me, I think Jankos is a fantastic jungler. Don't get me wrong, guys. However, I feel that based on how they've been drafting and how he fits into his team, he doesn't need to provide the same level of value that Maxlaw does. Maxlaw just seems to be the complete package for me. He consistently ganks early game. He's always trying to be active on the map. He's very aware of his win conditions and regularly plays towards them. And I just feel that he brings the entire package of what you could want from a jungler.
And for me, I mean, Maxlore is good, but I'm still like, Team Vitality are still missing from this list. The fact that it's made up of 3 teams, Misfits, G2, and Schalke, that's basically us saying that Schalke is the 3rd best team in the league, or kind of leaning that way. When Team Vitality took down Misfits, and again, it was super close. Names like Jizuke did come up, but unfortunately, Jizuke is competing with someone like Caps.
I mean, that's so difficult. And, you know, as a segue, the really big question at week 3, day 1, after 20 games on the LEC is who... No. Why is Caps the LEC Spring Split MVP already?
It's very early in the split,
but
quick shot. We can't be making statements on MVP.
I just did.
He's a really good player, but we can't quite say most valuable yet. Let's slow down a little bit quick.
I mean, my prompter just says Caps.
Yeah.
Okay, well, there you go. Okay, written, it's on Froskurin's prompter. Look, we talked a lot about Soaz and Maxwell. They're not only making waves on the Rift, but this week they also sat down with Drakus and Froskurin on Euphoria, where Maxwell shared his opinions on European top laners.
I think so as Wanda Alfari for sure.
I agree.
It's just after these three, it just becomes a bit wishy-washy.
Do you rank Cabochard highly?
He's very easy to gank.
Okay, so we'll say no. Soft no. Whippo?
He's also very easy to gank.
Warlip?
Oh, I haven't tried ganking him, but like for sure.
But I like how he based everything on how easy you can gank him. You know?
The issue is he plays Vijichachi and Werlid play Poppy. So like, and Poppy's really hard to gank. That's the problem. So even if they play like monkeys, which they both do, it's still very difficult to punish these champs.
Okay, so we have some explaining to do.
You do?
I make good on my bets. Trevor, you'll make good on yours. Your time will come.
I will.
Euphoria bet. I lost to Vedius. His power ranking was superior. I'd like to formally apologize to Misfits. You are superior. And now I'm dressed as a judge, and I've done my civic
Because
duty.
you are being judged, right?
Yes.
She's being judged for her poor preseason power ranking.
I'm Hufflepuff.
And of course, it is week 3, so this is definitely the time to be gloating about this. You guys can catch the full episode of Euphoria on YouTube, SoundCloud, Apple Podcast, as well as Spotify. So go check it out, as well as all the back catalog. Now, let's see what we got coming up tonight as we count down to week 3 of the LEC Spring Split. We'll be taking a couple of the games. Where are my eyes falling? I think Fnatic versus Rogue, the 2 undefeated teams in the league. Somebody's picking up their first win. And it might be Rogue's best chance.
It could very well be. I'm really excited. You know, it's always fun to watch the battle at the bottom, which I don't think many people would expect to say from
Absolutely
Fnatic.
not.
But also, Splyce versus Schalke. That one, to me, is probably one of the closest matches of the day. I was really struggled to predict who would come out on top, and I cannot wait for that one to kick off.
I mean, I frankly got a great day. I get to cast all 3 of these games. Probably the most exciting Rogue game, possibly that they might have all split, is between them and Fnatic right now.
Yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned predictions, and of course we have to turn because just like the T1000, the stats bot has risen from the ashes to terminate the competition in the race for superior analyst. Let's take a look what we've predicted for tonight's games, and I'm taking a look at the predictions so far. StatsBot is winning, and StatsBot is calling Schalke over Splyce. No, Splyce over Schalke, the only different one. I'd like to welcome...
You're coming for my crown?
I'm
You
welcoming
think that the official is
StatsBot?
gone, you can just take it? No! This is my kingdom! I will be the king! Get out of here! That's it! Walk away! Walk away,
Listen,
StatsBot!
You can yell all you want, he's beating you.
For
Vedius.
now, he's predicted Splyce, I predicted Schalke. The gap will close today! Get out of here!
Your time comes, StatBot.
Stupid.
I know Froskurin really wanted to pit StatsBot, and it didn't come
I can't believe you picked Vedius over me!
Because he sees who his real rival is.
I'm so
Excuse
sorry.
me, sir.
Okay, so listen, there's our predictions. You guys at home, make sure you log on to Twitter and hashtag your votes. It has to be before the start of each show day so we can actually track them and see whether or not you guys can catch up and beat my analysts as well as StatsBot.
We use that
Later
word
tonight,
very
it is time
loosely.
for our match of the week, and as the Stone Cold Killers of Vitality are looking to take on the powerhouse of Origen.
It's important for us next week to actually win against Vitality because they are contenders for the top spots.
I don't really feel like they should beat us in any sense at all, and if we play our game, we're just gonna take the 2-0.
We'll always aim for more. And if it's this split or next split or in 1 year, Origen will lift the cup.
They are not emotional at all. My guys are stone cold killers.
You are guaranteed a hype matchup because you know that both these teams want that win at all costs.
Well, let's see who is going to win later today. Frosk has been judged, and she is the weakest link, so she's gone. She's going to get ready for the cast, and that means I have brought in another UK duo to join here. It is Aaron Medic-Shelman. Welcome to Ready Check.
Thank you very much, Anne Robinson. It's very kind of you to welcome me to Ready Check.
Let's talk about this matchup very quickly because Vitality, they smashed Misfits last week. They're looking to prove themselves as a top contender. I think they've made that first step already.
Yes.
And if they can obliterate OG, it's another strong appearance.
A big adaptation from week 1 to week 2. G2 for Vitality, the fact they were able to play so successfully around their bottom lane, and they were able to have such a confident snowball, to me feels like a bit of a return of the Vitality of 2018.
And on the other side of the rift, we have Origen, who are struggling no end at the moment. 5 deaths at the 15-minute mark on average in their games. We talked about that earlier. They really have to bounce back, because at the moment they look like the prodigal sons who came back to the league, but really haven't come back to play.
Yeah, it's going to be a really difficult matchup for Origen based on their Week 2 performance. Let's see what they can do. You guys at home, if you would like to check out Cabochard, he will be hosting a POV stream over at twitch.tv/RiotGames2 that will start the moment the game loads in. So check that out just a little bit later today.
Well, today we are going to see patch 9.2 hit the rift, and with it a slew of changes that are going to alter the landscape of professional play. Starting off with our S-tier picks. Nerfs to Urgot, Aatrox and Galio mean that their priority in the pick ban is going to fall off slightly. I don't expect to see them completely fall out of the meta. Picks like Galio still provide a huge amount of teamfight presence, so don't be surprised if we see the Colossus move his way down towards the supporting role. Now, next up, jungle changes. Everyone loves a jungle change, and jungle experience from all camps scales slower and caps much lower in 9.2. This means that junglers can't rely on getting all of their resources from the jungle. Alongside a nerf to challenging smite, junglers will have to weigh up the risks of playing for the early game and getting those ganks off. Expect to see tank and utility junglers like Gragas, Sejuanis, or the Zacs of the world rise up in priority once again. Now finally, let's talk about Baron and tower changes. On patch 9.1, the average time for taking Baron to finishing a game in the LEC was 6 minutes and 9 seconds, the fastest it's ever been by over a minute. Those turrets melted. Now to try and make games a little bit harder to close out in a single push, patch 9.2 has taken some power away from those buffed up Flexius minions early on and caused them to scale up a lot slower into the late game. Added to Inhibitor and Nexus towers having more armor and magic resist early in the game, I expect to see a lot more action on the Rift and it to be tougher for teams to finish out games. Now those are the big changes on 9.2. Expect to see a little bit more variation in drafts, some utility-focused junglers coming back, and more comebacks from teams that fall behind.
And I think that point is the one I resonate the most with. Really like your summary there, Medic, because the game slowing down, I think, will be really important moving forward in the meta. You asked earlier things like G2, how will they be able to adapt? Will snowballing be the same? I think some of these changes will start that transition as bot lane has become slightly stronger, roaming becomes a little weaker, and I really like that. Do I like that the game's slowing down? I don't know, but I think
the question is, how much does it impact the draft? Because this will add maybe a couple minutes to gameplay. We need to see how it plays out today, but the majority of the picks should remain unchanged.
Except there's one. You may have seen it over in the LCK,
What
but there was also a buff.
If it says
Jarvan
Nocturne.
support maybe making his
why
way
is it
to the
surprising,
LEC.
Vidius? How did it work in LCK?
Well, I don't want to go into too much detail.
Because there's one key facet.
But it now goes AP Jarvan, and it's really fun to watch. Hopefully we get to see it today. I don't know if we will, but I know we've seen it in the LCK already. He got buffed this patch as well, didn't he, Medic? So I think it could make an appearance.
Okay, hold that thought. AP Jarvan, I want to see it. Let's see if any of the teams do it today in the LEC. Look, the first teams on stage are SK Gaming and G2, and just before we talk about the matchup, let's see what G2 Perks had to say earlier today.
Hi everyone, Laure here, and I'm joined with Perks ahead of their game against SK today. Thank you for joining me. You'll be playing against SK Gaming today. Last week you had a bit of a hard time against XL. You almost lost the game to them. What would you need to do today to avoid doing these mistakes again?
Well, the game was going really good for us until like 10 minutes. We were tricky up in laning phase, and we just made a bad call to dive, and the game went downhill from there for a bit. And it was even fine after that. We just kept doing the game by willing to fight against their teamfight comp. And then when we realized that we should not fight them straight up 5-5, just like that, then we started winning the game. So I think we just have to be more mindful of our winning condition in the game and play chill.
Chill, according to your strategy. You seem to have something in mind. Everybody's saying that you have the edge over SK today. Let's take a step back for a bit. If you were in SK's head, what would you have to do to take G2 down?
Well, if I was in SK's head, I would probably not have many choices to take G2 down because I don't really see a clear weakness. I would mostly hope that they int and then capitalize on their mistakes and then take G2 down. But yeah, straight up, it's going to be really hard for them.
So if you avoid making the same mistakes you did last week, you will be good, as you mentioned. Last question here. You were with G2 the time SK got relegated out of the LCS. Does this game have some kind of special flavor to you today?
Well, since I qualified for LCS by taking down SK, it's kind of nice to see like an older name. But in general, not too much because the players are all different, so I don't really have any connection with any of the players. But every game I play, I take it the same. If it's against SK or Fnatic, I just want to win. So, yeah.
Well, thank you for your words and good luck, obviously, on the first game. And for more on this game, let's send it back to the desk.
And of course, for Perks, maybe not the most emotional connection taking down SK, but for the owner of G2 Esports, Ocelot, relegating his former team, I'm sure would have stuck with him. I got to go back. In order for SK to win, Perks is like, well, in SK's head, they have to hope G2 int. Maybe play a little loose, fast and loose.
I mean,
it's tough.
That's my solo queue mentality, right? When you're 0-6 down, it's like, okay, every lane is feeding. Let's just hope that the enemy ints. But from what we've seen from G2 thus far, hoping they int is a very, very unlikely thing to happen.
It's always a challenge. It's great to hear from Perks as well. And it's just, I love the confidence too, right? He's like, well, I guess if I was the enemy, the only way I could see it is if they messed up. And from Perks' perspective, it's like, but we never mess up. So they don't have any, I guess G2 is unbeatable.
I think Perks has a short-term memory because I remember his Draven game, so there's some opportunities there. But, I mean, this is a David versus Goliath matchup. This is, you know, 4-time champions G2 with the super team.
Isn't it always David versus Goliath when you fight G2, though?
I mean, maybe this year it probably is, especially because of just the superpowers. You know, they are insanely strong and insanely talented.
I'm going to interrupt you for a second there, Trevor. I actually think this game is the most David versus Goliath we've seen. SK have 90 games in pro EU top tier level. G2 have 990 games at the top level. That's a massive discrepancy.
So that's professional games for each of the respective players on the stage.
Yes. Sorry, the players, yes.
Unbelievable. 10 times the amount. It's unscalable. So, look, G2, they can pick where they want to win, how they want to attack you. Vedius, where are some of the strengths and the tools that G2 can employ to allow Perks to be so confident in the pre-game?
So we mention it almost every single week, but a large part of it is to do with their drafting. They have a wide selection of options in terms of what they can pick. And if we just look at some of the examples on their board, you can see in their first week, they drafted the extremely obnoxious Zoe Carthus comp. You get hit by a single skill shot, then you're going to die. They also then went for an early game snowball comp versus XL, which is a little shaky, but again, they were able to pull it off. And then versus Rogue, they went for something completely different again, the Protect the Caps composition with the Aurelia and the Karma top.
I really like the Rogue composition because this was into a Karthus jungle. So when you consider the shielding options and the survivability tools for Requiem, there's simply no way for that Karthus to get rolling.
And when you look at every single one of those comps, the key standout, the keystone for me is Caps in that mid lane. We thought maybe G2 were taking a gamble, putting Perks into the AD carry role, bringing Caps in. He has been consistently the best player in our league and probably the best player Europe has ever seen.
Oh, that's a bold statement. And I'm hard-pressed to argue against you. I mean, I called him the Spring Split MVP. Let's turn our attention to the other side of the rift, of course, SK Gaming. Now, they're coming into this matchup as definitely the underdogs. SK, they've had a good start to the Spring Split. They returned to the stage. They're currently sitting at 2 wins, 2 losses. Now, for a new squad, I see some positives, and I see some areas of improvement, shall we say. So Vedius, turns to you. You know, what else can this team do if they don't manage to get ahead? Because that's the only way I've seen them win games.
Yeah, unfortunately for SK, it seems that a lot of their wins come from when they play to their game plan. When they come in well prepared, they execute the early game effectively, and then they transition into a solid mid game. That is when we see a very, very good SK that take down surprising opponents, like the likes of Fnatic in week 1, right? However, it does feel that when they don't get their game plan going and when things don't mesh together, they get a little bit chaotic, they get a little desperate, and sometimes they don't make the smartest moves, which end up backfiring against them very heavily. And I think that's just a big experience difference for them, given that you have 3 of the former 5 Madliners players on this roster. They don't have that experience yet, and you already talked about it earlier, Medic. There's such a big disparity in game experience that they're not quite there.
But talking about the game plan for SK, it's pretty bread and butter what they want to do every single game as well. It's all about self-made, getting ahead, being able to go towards that top lane, go towards that bot lane, get those consistent ganks off. And so I would like to see him do this again. Yes, you can read it.
I want to see him ganking top less, though.
No, gank top, gank bot. It works for them every time.
He literally, like clockwork, goes top lane at 4 minutes. We were casting their game versus XL, and we were like, expect he's coming top at level 4, and yeah, he was every single time.
Okay, so let's step back. We know the game plan for SK. We know that they've succeeded twice and not succeeded twice with that game plan. We're very nearly jumping into picks and bans. So how does SK step up to G2 Esports? Can they just use the same strategy, or would you like to see them maybe play around Pyrenean in the mid lane, mix something up and try catch G2 off guard?
So for me, what I would love to see is Selfmade getting the better of Jankos. For the large part of the split so far, Jankos hasn't really been involved in trying to carry his lanes because his lanes just kind of win by themselves. Yeah. But that also means that you often have pushing lanes that can be taken advantage of. So a lot of my eyes fall onto Selfmade. And if you want to gank top, then fine. Putting Wonder behind is not a terrible thing. But it would be nice if they tried playing around their mid lane. What happens when you do turn Pyrion into a carry and also shut Caps down?
I actually think there's an argument to never go mid lane at all. Like, Caps is going to 2v1 you 9 times out of 10. Like, he's just that good, right? Go top, get that first gank off, and then just hard camp bot. We've seen Perks be put behind before. We talked about the Draven game. If you can just totally shut down one of the key components of G2 as an organization, never mind as a team, maybe you can shut G2 down.
It's going to be a really difficult task. SK Gaming standing up against G2 Esports. Now, before we start the week, let's get to know SK's rookie jungler, who tonight takes a look down, who looks to take down another European champion. Welcome to the 2019 LEC Spring Split.
Selfmade, he just seemed to be someone extremely talented. He was somebody who really wants to beat other people, but has the confidence as well that he can do it.
I always dreamed of living from doing this. I started playing League of Legends when I was 12 years old. I knew that I want to be part of something bigger.
El Clásico, that is the memory of what SK and Fnatic once were, of times when both organizations dominated esports with some of the most memorable plays ever.
Our whole preparation for this week was versus Fnatic. We just tried our best, no matter what we're gonna pick in Champions Select.
And it'll be up to this new SK to show us if they can live up to their enormous legacy.
I also come from bot neighborhood, so that for sure affected me. Whenever I go on stage, I feel much more calm than even when I play scrims.
Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together as Fnatic take on SK Gaming. Well, it's down to 200. First blood secured. SK Gaming are not buckling under any pressure, and they are playing exceptionally well.
Sure, when I play on stage, I'm the one who tries to calm people down.
Guys, like, stop my communication, okay?
Yeah, relax. Just to buy some time, Crown Shot comes in as well, and Hilly goes down. But SK are continuing to pull ahead. We have a dramatic pause.
When the break happened, I was only waiting for them to unpause the game, because we knew that we were gonna win this game. When they told us that it would be remake, I was actually kinda laughing because it was my first game in LEC versus world finalists from the last year.
Fnatic trying to come back into this game, utilizing their mobility, looking for picks, but it might be Hylissang that gets picked instead.
Oh man, Hylissang's been killed. Get channeled up, and look at this, Hylissang's already dead.
But still, very close game compared to the game before.
Fnatic get 3 quick kills in the mid lane. Well, he's got perfect execution available to him. Here comes Pyrion. Flash over. SK Gaming stopped the Baron.
When I found the opportunity to engage on Reckless, I just tried it and it worked out.
But he decides not to follow through with the resonating strike. That's a stun on the Reckless. The dive forward. Selfmade and a true shot barrage. Selfmade, you are a god.
That was insane from Selfmade.
And
SK
finish!
Gaming taking down Fnatic, the world finalists.
For me, after winning versus them, it felt like it was something really special. LEC feels much different than LVP. It feels much more serious, and I'm like proud of being there. Nemesis told me that he's gonna be the one hugging me after the game, and in the end I was the one who hugged him, so we're winning versus Fnatic. We knew that we can beat everyone.
He has this one thing that he's very sure of, which is League of Legends. His pursuit for winning games is definitely something that, you know, makes Selfmade.
Selfmade, what a way to open your career in the LEC. Not only beating world champions, or almost world champions, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm thinking this year, almost world champion Fnatic, but also sniping Reckless to end the game. Fantastic. Sadly, it does not get easier for him today, going up against the monsters that are G2, what looks to be a potentially undefeated super team. I think a lot of people are skeptical about.
Do you remember what I said when we had our pitch about like who is Selfmade? How do I get exciting for SK?
Yes.
What did I say? You lied, it's fine. I said that he was baby Yankos. I said, get excited about Selfmade. I've watched him in the Spanish League. I've watched him on Mad Lions. I think he's incredibly talented, and he reminded me a lot of Yankos in his high days. So now we get to see baby Yankos versus actual Yankos and the super villains that are G2.
And I'm ready to see it. Picks and bans, of course, going to be incredibly crucial. First game we're going to see in the LEC on 9.2. Now, not the biggest set of changes to individual champions, but a lot of small nerfs across some meta picks, as well as some pretty sweeping changes to the jungle. Could mix things up a little bit, Frostgrim, but what are we expecting to see here with SK on the blue side?
Well, for me, I really actually want to hone in on those jungle changes, and since we are talking about Yankos and Selfmade, see what the meta is going to be for the LEC. Now, in the LCK, they tended to stay toward those aggressive junglers, and if you guys haven't looked at the jungle changes, it's in the experience. So there's 25% less experience in the jungle, roughly, and that means there's less resources. So what are your options? Do you go high gank jungler and you try to get those resources through ganking the lanes, getting these kills, or do you go low econ jungler and say, okay, you get less, but you take a champion that needs less to really thrive? And the question is, for me, are we going to see the Xin Zhaos, the Lee Sins, or is it going to be Zac, Sejuani, and which direction LEC is going to go?
Iverns.
We're probably going to see an Ivern, actually.
But it's interesting to see what SK have prioritized. They've taken away the Karthus, do not want to give that one to Yankos, as well as the Jace, so limiting a lot of those incredibly powerful laning picks. Opposite side, Lissandra did not get touched in 9.2, surprising a lot of people, so remaining at the top with the pick totem pole. But now, SK need to figure out how exactly they want to approach this draft. For now, it looks like the Lucian could be the first pick coming in for Crown Shot. And going toe-to-toe with Perks in the bot lane, you feel like as a, more traditional ADK player, not a former mid laner, he has something to prove here.
That said, one of the few champions that Perks hasn't shown yet is the Ezreal, so actually going back towards a marksman. And then the other champion that was left open in terms of your two priority picks, it was Lucian and it was Urgot. Urgot was slightly tapped on 9.2, but they didn't notice it in the LCK, and Wonder's probably not going to notice it up in that top lane.
Absolutely not. So getting themselves good priority picks. The Ezreal, something we don't see as much, very often taken away here, alongside the Urgot. Once again, of course, a flex pick can go to the hand of Caps or Wonder, depending on how they want to play this one. And the Braum now coming in as well for SK. So Crown Shot and Dreams already set up for success here on the bottom side of the map. The potential to be incredibly aggressive with that concussive blows combo.
And my question is, are they going to grab jungler and first rotation before second ban phase, or are they going to grab a flex pick and try to survive some of their solo lanes? Facing G2 on any side of the Rift is terrifying, but facing G2 on red side is exceptionally so, because then they have counter pick almost guaranteed for Caps.
And that's some confidence coming in. Blind, not quite 100% blind, but semi-blind Kennen, taking it into what they believe will be an Urgot, but the risk of flex picks, as you said, is always there.
And this matchup was popularized by Odo over in the LEC, and of course the Klepto changes give a lot of power back to the Kennen. It is a very strong matchup into the Urgot, because he's one of the few ranged champions that can match Urgot's range in the top lane.
The Thresh now locked in as well for Mickey, so it looks like the bot lanes at least are confirmed for now, short of something incredibly creative with the Ezreal. Talking about the Braum, Lucian, Thresh, Ezreal, what can we expect out of this bot lane, Frostgrim?
I'm going to say it's going to be an all-in. I love the fact that, Lucian for the longest time, I think coming into the season, people are like, Lucian's the strongest bot laner, maybe outside Cassiopeia. He's almost must-ban, and now he's starting to slip through, and it feels like people are feeling a lot more comfortable taking the Ezreal into the Lucian. Delay your back, try to get your Sheen instead of a tier, and you can start matching Lucian and some of that 2v2 dominance.
And we'll see, too, if Perks can try his hand at, once again, a more traditional AD carry. He's only had a few games under his belt so far this season. The Xin, though, taken away. So the aggressive junglers, looks like that was the style that G2 expect to be facing, or at least want to limit. But, of course, pick of the litter when it comes to the remaining tank junglers. Sejuani is still up and available.
What's also interesting to me is kind of the rise of Ryze, or I guess I should say the return of Ryze. We're starting to see him creep up a little bit, a lot more in the LCK and the LPL, but he really hasn't been touched in the LEC, despite how many strong Ryze players we have. So I'm curious if we're going to see him slip more onto the ban phase, or even the pick phase, as Galio has also been nerfed.
And just continuing to see the aggressive junglers picked out. The Galio you mentioned would have synergized incredibly well with the Camille. G2 have, of course, limited that option. Taking their time here in the final ban. Could see a mid laner taken off the board. Once again, the Syndra now to match the Ryze as well. So pretty confident, looks like, from the side of SK that they will be facing that Urgot in the top lane and just trying to take some of Caps' options off the board.
A lot of his roam potential, like you said, though, he could go for something like a Galio if he just wants a sustainable laner. Maybe he even goes crazy. He grabs another assassin. I know the Yasuo has been targeted at him. It's not necessarily the greatest into this pickup, but it's Caps. Who knows what's going to happen?
And I'm going to be honest, Frostgrim, now looking at the Sejuani locked in, this is the tamest G2 draft we have seen all season. The only thing left that really feels like it has the potential to be flexed is the Urgot. The Sejuani has been flexed before, but for any other team, I wouldn't even consider that a possibility. Now the LeBlanc locked in. So it looks like comfort picks are the priority for SK, giving Orla Buchanan an aggressive laner, and now Pyrion getting a playmaker for himself. Have to wonder how Selfmade is going to complement this. What is he going to pull out from the jungle to go toe-to-toe with the Sejuani?
A lot of LCK junglers would pick something like the Zac that can scale along the Sejuani, but Lee Sin means that he's going to be ganking before her.
And that is a statement right there. Wanting to come out swinging, wanting to come out aggressive, knowing that they have to take down G2 in the early game. They want to come out on top, and you heard Perk say it, hey, they have to hope that we kind of run it down. And if any champion can capitalize on people mispositioning, it is definitely the Lee Sin.
I love the aggression in the lane phase. It feels like most of the time Selfmade's the guy that carries the crowd control for SK Gaming. This time around, there's not a lot of crowd control to be found, but there is explosive burst damage and a lot of winning lanes. Feels like SK recognize, okay, we're against G2, these guys roll everyone over in the lane phase. Let's not play dead. Let's not play scaling. Let's actually try to match them toe for toe, tit for tat in these lane phases and see what we can get out of it.
And that is a bold decision. G2, a team that can kind of strong-arm their way through any matchup, no matter how weighted against them it is, just due to raw mechanical skill. But I feel like we've seen some greatness come out of all the players here on the side of SK, but have yet to see it transition into a win against one of these top teams. Maybe today is the day that they can do it. G2 were caught out against XL last week. Maybe SK can find some of those same opportunities. And Caps is not on that Akali. These are not the crazy playmaking champions. They're going to give them the opportunity for some kind of insane comeback.
Yeah, there's actually a lot more pressure for this guy on your screen in Perks. You know, picking up the Ezreal, when you have something like a Sejuani and a Victor, that amount of zone control in front of you, you have to look at Perks to be that massive damage output and say, okay, we're giving you the space, we're giving you the time, we're giving you these massive AoEs. Now do your thing on Ezreal. Start skating between all of this and min-max a lot of that damage output.
And as an update, last second swap, we've got Urgot in the mid lane. We've got the Victor on the top side of the map for Wonder.
It couldn't be normal.
Could not give it to us 100% straight, could they? Here we are, first game of the day, first game of week 3. Question on everyone's mind, can SK do it? Can they be the first team to take a win off an undefeated G2 Esports, or does the super team keep on rolling through? SK versus G2 starting now.
That last-minute swap looks like giving a lot of respect to the Kennen-Urgot matchup. Wonder didn't want to be put into that deficit, so grabbing hold of the Victor, and Caps taking that into the mid lane. Likewise, Urgot much tankier. It's going to be harder for Pyrion to find a lot of that big poke burst damage and have more kill pressure on the Urgot. So I do like the adaptation from G2. We talk all the time about the depth of their champion pools, how dangerous that makes them in draft, because they can flex anything, not just between 2 roles or 3 roles, up to 4 roles can flex here.
Sometimes you're scared, you know, you're wondering where these picks are going to go. Hey, is the Sejuani maybe top lane this time around? But they can also just, the real mix-up is when they play standard for Oscar, which is like what we're seeing here. This is the most normal draft we've seen from G2 yet. Perks on an 80 carry, very traditional support. Nothing really crazy outside of that final swap. For now, battle for vision. Just a small trade here between the respective players. You talked about early aggression coming out. We got that Lee Sin, we see this Kennen, we see this LeBlanc, but where are we looking for Selfmade to go?
For me, I want to kind of track the level 6. So Lee Sin's an interesting pick here because, again, you have less resources in the jungle, so where do you make up those resources? On a champion like Lee Sin, you obviously always have the option to look for those ganks, especially with Pyrion's LeBlanc. High burst damage, kill threat is massive there, but if you fall into that trap where you try to hard scale to level 6, that's where Lee Sin gets his big power spike, because obviously his ultimate does so much damage. It's taking junglers much longer to get to that level 6 experience mark, and where they used to do it around 6 minutes, they're doing it closer to 7 minutes in the LCK, and that's massive because Selfmade's the guy where all of the action happens around. So if he's slowed down, if he's not making plays, you know, that much faster into the game, it could slow everything down for SK.
And you can see this, we've talked a lot about Selfmade's kind of tropes already in the games that we've seen him in. Now, of course, likes to spend most of his time around that mid lane, but we almost always see at least one gank towards the bottom side, and Kennen is there to give him the setup. He definitely has the damage if Kennen can lock the target down. So it really does feel like all eyes on Selfmade here in the early stages of the game.
It still feels a little bit like the Mad Lions. Coming from the Spanish League, SK took 3 of their 5 members. That's Werlib, Selfmade, and Crownshot, and you saw it in his jungle proximity. Selfmade is still playing around his old school teammates, and I feel like the evolution from Mad Lions to SK Gaming in the LEC means that he needs to start giving a little bit more love to Pyrion. Pyrion's actually been quite significant. Nemesis went on record in saying that Pyrion's one of the most underrated mid laners in the LEC. He's performed decently well now looking across from Caps, and I just want to see this combo take off and take SK to the next level.
And of course, in a decent spot to do it. He's playing, a huge playmaking champion like LeBlanc. Going up against Urgot, kind of, let's just say, not the most interactive laning phase for both these champions, more focused on clearing out the champions. But once we get into that mid game, you're looking at some of the squishier members on the side of G2, like a Thresh, like an Ezreal, and maybe that is where Pyrion can make the impact. For now, though, Caps continuing just to threaten here in the mid lane.
I know that Caps is on a tankier champion. It's still going to be hard to deal with him, and he also has a lot of pressure in the lane phase because that's just naturally what Urgot does. But again, I don't want to underestimate the power of LeBlanc, Lee Sin, and their ability to kill anyone.
Pyrion, though, may have overstayed his welcome now. Needs to try to make his way out to safety. First blood, taking down Caps, getting too aggressive, too reliant on the jungler. Jankos is going to get one back, but a misstep coming in for Caps in the mid lane.
And you're absolutely right. It was the over-reliance on Jankos. He saw that his jungler was nearby. He felt safe going aggressive there, maybe some miscommunication, but Pyrion just slapped Caps in lane phase. Now bot.
The aggression does not stop, but luckily Dreams has the Unbreakable. A good hook landed by Mickey, but not on the priority target they were looking for. Perks and Mickey for now just shoved under their tower. The aggression of Lucian and Braum providing at least enough to shove in a tower. But let's take a look back at this. Pyrion playing this one very well.
And again, it just felt like, Caps feels that he's safe to be there. Maybe doesn't respect the burst damage coming out of LeBlanc too much there. Pyrion well played it, making sure that all of his damage abilities hit. And then Jankos does eventually trade 1-for-1. So the wave is fine, teleports back in, but still never feels good to walk into lane phase 4 minutes in and give over first blood.
Never does. And of course, Caps' first professional game in the LEC, or rather in Europe, on Urgot. So, you want to show people that your champion pool is deep, but if you're dying on those champions, I don't know if that really counts.
I mean, it's deep if you're 6 feet under.
Well played. For Pyrion, though, now he wants to keep this pressure going, has the double Dark Seal, but taking that tower shot puts him in a bit of an awkward spot, taking a second one as well. Caps just hoping to run this kill down. No sums, though, or he might be able to chase a little bit further. Pyrion getting aggressive, though, still, despite everything, massive CS deficit for him.
He's not going to have that same window to have that type of aggression, though, on Caps, when Caps does change his teleport. So a big reason why Pyrion was fine to take that early level trade was the Ignite versus teleport difference between the mid lane or summoner spells. When Caps is level 6 and he swaps out that TP for the Ignite, it's going to get a lot riskier for Pyrion to continue to be that aggressive.
You have to be careful. Once Urgot marks you, once he hits you with that ultimate, if you drop low enough, you are going to die. And of course, have to respect the potential for Jankos to come out of the Fog of War. We've seen Selfmade make great use of the Sejuani Q plus ultimate combo. And now Perks looks to be the man in trouble. Are they going to be able to burn him down in the early game? Crown shot. Firing back with the hook, but not able to get him so close. Perks keeping up in CS, but Crown shot reminding him who the real AD carry is.
This might be, I don't think he's counter-gating it. I think he's actually just creating a safety net for Wonder. So hold on, first damage here.
Chains does connect. You're now going to back off. Selfmade looking for the follow-up. That's level 6 now coming out. Slowly bringing him down, but they're actually backing off. Jankos is on the way. Pyrion, if he gets dash forward, he could get interrupted here. They're not going to be able to kill Caps.
So much respect giving to Jankos right there. Level 4 on the Sejuani. I feel like Pyrion could have pushed that a little bit more, especially because he had the flash. So maybe it's getting to him that it's G2 that he's facing of all people.
Frost, we're going to go a little bit back, but back when G2 was at the top of Europe, Prawley said something about this team that I think is starting to come true once again, which is that they've been good for so long and they're so terrifying that people give them extra respect that they don't need to, that they play a little bit scared. And that's what that looked like to me right there, because I feel like Selfmade just pushed a little bit deeper. Yes, you have to respect Caps' ultimate, but he has to respect you, and you got to teach him that. Doesn't take the risk, though, in the end, and it does cost them. Bit of an awkward situation now as Perks is going to be able to push in on the bottom side, recoup some of his losses from earlier on, and is sitting pretty on that Sheen.
Yeah, and that's the big thing. The fact that he was able to stay in the lane long enough, didn't quite get his Sheen tier back. You can see he's got the Sapphire Crystal, so it's going to delay a little bit of those stacks and some of that hyper scaling, but he does feel comfortable taking some of these aggressive trades with that Sheen. And I feel it's like across the board, SK are trying to be brave to G2. They're trying to challenge them in lanes.
Now Selfmade does get spotted out, but they're not going to commit for anything else. Level 6 for the Lee Sin, you talked about it. This is the point where we want to see it. Well, it's 7 minutes now. Still not quite there.
It feels bad as a jungler. And again, maybe this is just a small sample size. We'll start to see over time if people start moving away. Because again, 7:15 in the game, finally Lee Sin gets that level 6. And if they're going to start moving towards the likes of the Sejuani, the Zax, these low econ champions that don't necessarily need their ultimate to be hyper proactive or a lot of gold because they're so tanky with their base stats. But he finally got it. Huge burst damage for the Lee Sin. And again, kill pressure is everywhere now because of Selfmade's champion.
So it's eyes on Selfmade, as it was in the earlier game. Now seeing him hover around the bottom side of the map. For now, focusing on the Krugs, but maybe they can make a play down here. Perks has been caught out a few times, let's say, in some bad trades. Has yet to go down, but has come very close. But Jankos in the mid lane may be looking to make a difference. The burst damage here from Caps and Jankos combined could be enough to just cut through the LeBlanc. but they're going to need to land something onto Pyrion first. Very difficult against the LeBlanc with ulti.
As long as Pyrion hides, I think he has a heads-up play about this. You can see there's danger pings across the map, so he is at least aware, not necessarily what side Jankos is on, but that Jankos is probably in the area with how aggressive Caps is playing, and also knowing that he has the Ignite available. So the counter gank here, Selfmade and Pyrion are trying to set a trap.
Baiting him in, Pyrion does the double dash forward. Cap says, hey, maybe I have the opportunity here. Does get locked up. They're going to keep going for a little bit more. Are they going to be able to burn him down? But no, the perfect stun! They're beyond death! That was so clean.
Lee Sin has his ultimate, couldn't get it off in time. That would have been the burst damage, the difference maker, a millisecond of a frame, and that's why Caps is so good.
That's why, yeah, that ult was perfectly timed, and these are the narrow windows. Playing the odds, hold that thought, the flash out from bot lane. They're gonna back off. Colin comes in. Perks. Now he's hit him with the Winter's Bite.
No more winning lane phase today, boys.
SK are going toe-to-toe with G2 right now. Frostgurn, they're fighting back. They are not afraid. Crown Shot and Dreams are showing up, and we were moments away from seeing Caps go down once again. Luckily for G2, they are able to turn it, and the gold is just about dead even. But this is not the one-sided affair we expected it to be.
And we do have to take account where SK are trying to attack G2 here. The fact that there's been so many repeated ganks on Caps in that mid lane is... You said it. I was wrong. It was Jankos. I give him his
Jankos
respect.
the hero, the stun. The ulti from Caps, though, does make it beautiful, and just the chain CC is flawless. This replay, of course, brought to you by Alienware. And there's nothing quite as, I would say, humiliating as almost killing an Urgot and then having him ult you to kill you.
Feels bad. It's now bottom.
Yeah, we look at this replay again, and tanking the full culling is difficult. That Lantern feels a bit tragic. Of course, every cloud has a silver lining, Frostgurn, and the silver lining right now for G2 in that exchange is the kill didn't go to the Lucian.
I was waiting for what it was going to be. Because eating an entire calling and not taking Lantern doesn't feel great.
It's not the worst thing that can happen, but luckily Jankos is here. Maybe they can recoup some of their losses. Perks and Mickey looking tasty. See, they've baited them into a false sense of security by dying in lane, and Jankos is here to punish that.
That's the 4D chess. You make it so they're not scared to go aggressive on you, and then you have Jankos for the counter gank.
We saw it worked out for Caps. Selfmade, though, still not too afraid of Jankos, but not entirely certain. Does see the play coming in mid lane. Dreams and Crown Shot, though, see an opportunity. Ooh, that was clean from Mickey. Fantastic sidestep. The hook comes out. Now Dreams has overstayed his welcome. Beautiful Zonius to dodge the Edriel ult. Jankos is here for the follow-up. He's going to make it out. Fantastic cancel once again from Dreams, who supports back and forth. Some fantastic individual mechanical plays. The flash out. A little unnecessary. Now trying to walk it off to safety. Keep your eyes on Caps and the ultimate available. Firing out. Does connect into Crown Shot. Wants to get a little bit more damage. Wants to get just enough to bring him home. Fear Beyond Death won't connect. TP now coming in. Pyrion now playing him off the side. Whirlip on the side, coming right in the middle of the team. Cutting through the G2 lineup, but not quite enough on the ultimate. Period going in. Whirlip gonna grab the kill in the end. SK aren't just matching anymore, Frostgurn. They are winning in these exchanges. A 1K gold lead in their back pocket.
And think of how many skills just didn't connect from G2. Some of the Mystic shots missed. A lot of that was good dodging, nicely timed flashes from the members of SK. But these are mistakes that you don't normally see. And it feels like when they have skill shots, they're targetable abilities. But in the long exchange, as this just kind of continued to drag on, so much of G2's damage just didn't connect with their targets. The fact that the Hourglass was perfectly played over the Ezreal, the fact that the Sejuani ultimate was slightly dodged by Dreams, repositioning himself with the W.
I believe he got hit. I believe he input buffered the W, or he got stunned mid-flight.
And then just repositioned and was able to walk.
It's just so clean from both these players. And now, this awkward moment where that kill on the Crown Shot could have turned the fight, but a slight miscalculation. And SK just dominate.
And this is now back-to-back games. I thought going into SK, you're like, okay, how do you beat G2? You look at the XL game. What went wrong there? Well, frankly, G2 just kind of ran it down into that bot lane. I was like, that'll never happen again. And yet, here we go. G2 is starting to dig themselves in this hole where they overreach in the bot lane, and SK are able to pick up so many kills on the back half.
Now, it is a small sample size. You don't want to make sweeping statements, but it does raise the question, is Perks the weakness for this team?
Sweeping statement.
Yeah, has someone finally found the weakness of the super team? Is Perks the member that can be exploited? Is on the Ezreal, though, so we'll be safe for now.
I don't feel like that's true to what SK's game plan was. It felt like they said, okay, we're going against G2. We know we got to respect Caps. We're going to be afraid of him. And it's just been repeated ganks. And now it finally tipped over and leaked into the bot lane. But so far, it feels like SK have just been throwing everything. Lee Sin, LeBlanc at Caps repeatedly.
building towards that 2K gold lead. Now, no bigger objectives have gone down yet. No towers, no dragons. The Rift Herald's still up and available. But the next fight, if it is highly favoring one team, will lead to one or two of those objectives. And that could be a crucial gold swing. TP, though, now coming bottom.
It's Caps.
Looking for the follow-up. Crownshot has overstay as welcome. Dreams needs to find a way to disengage, but it's going to be a difficult ask as Crownshot gets lower and lower. Fear Beyond Death's available. They're taking their time with this one. Quite easy for G2 in the end. Clean follow-up. Dreams now trying to make it on safety. Pyrion is on the way, but it looks like he is just going to be a sacrificial lamb. Pyrion himself may turn right back around. They want nothing to do with it, and G2, just like that, are right back in the game.
Yeah, too little too late to the party for SK. Now G2 can take whatever they want. It looks like they want to push them off of this tower, make sure that they can't take the mid tower, or at least get damage on it while they maybe turn towards the Mountain Drake. I'm actually curious how far that they were going to chase them.
You're never sure. You want to wonder.
They're still going.
Chasing a LeBlanc does not feel like a winning proposition, but the longer they spend keeping LeBlanc from doing anything else, the longer that Perkz gets to sit here in this bottom lane and free hit on the tower. He's already gotten one piece of turret plating to himself. Looks like he will get a second, so that is 340 gold. 20 gold, 320 gold.
I also do want to point out that Mickey placed a very deep ward. Lucian actually just walking over it right now. Teleport discrepancies.
Locked down, Selfmade is right there, but Warlord is just going to get cut through in an instant. Pulled right back, but he brings the stun back to the team. Selfmade is going to be able to find a kill back. Now trying to outplay this one, now trying to play it safety. Caps, taking a lot of damage here. The dash to the side, Selfmade, the clean looking plays. Jankos manages to live in the end, but it's so close, and now it is Crownshot in trouble. Perkz and Mickey for looking for a little bit of revenge. They know the Braum isn't there, they know Crownshot's life is in their hands, and they say not today. But here comes the rest of SK. Looking for the follow-up kills. Perkz has the flash available. He needs to make it out of safety. Lantern is there. Pyrion knows not to follow up, and a good hook by Mickey would have connected, but Pyrion snaps right back. No interest in that fight.
Just a hit and run from G2 as they clap back on SK. It feels like we've been going back and forth in the lane phase. Who was going to win the lane but Caps? I think it was from bot to mid to top lane. Just rolled through every single lane and won it back for G2.
And G2 looking incredibly confident, laughing on stage, feeling alive. It was a bit shaky there for a few minutes, but the second they find an opportunity, the second SK exposes some of those weaknesses, they can capitalize instantly.
And just using the tankiness that they have in Sejuani and the Urgot. Warlib probably suspects that someone's going to be there, walks over right into that Sejuani ult, doesn't feel good.
And Selfmade makes the most of this play. Almost manages to make it out, but clean coordination on the tower dive for Jankos to tank that extra shot works out for them.
That was the big thing, is how well Jankos was able to juggle the tower aggro, and then unfortunately Crownshot, a little bit too greedy, too far forward in the lane, and Mickey and Perkz made him pay.
And now with the blue buff and 2 items working towards that key 2-item spike for the Ezreal, G2 are starting to look a lot more confident as they start to push out the mid lane.
And it's also at this point in the game where their champions have all of their item breakpoints. Again, across the board, you see that they have the superior itemization. So G2 will feel really comfortable to group up and really start abusing with this composition, particularly on that Ezreal poke.
Don't know if SK want to give them that opportunity, though, Frost. We have the flank potential from a cannon at any moment. It is the AP cannon, along with Pyrion, who can look to leap in, but it's so hard to know if you're going to get the right flank.
It's almost impossible if G2 play it right. A, their vision line. B, the fact that they have Ezreal and Thresh. And the fact that they're able to go aggressive in this mid lane. Which, what that means is they don't have to group up. Check out how fed Perkz is. 4-2-2. He can be in a side lane and no one can contest him as long as they keep him
common mistake. The G2 mid laner is Caps now. Perkz is the AD carry.
Wow, muscle memory just slipped it out.
Perkz is the Ezreal. I know, it's weird. It takes a long time to get used to. But you're right, Caps 4-2-2. This is a terrifying Urgot. Definitely eat through any stats that your teammates have with that Black Cleaver. And now they're going to get the Mountain Drake as well, so make the Barons and these towers a little bit easier to take. SK, though, maybe looking for that fight. You can see Warlib hover around on that flank.
Deep teleport. They're going to try to start it with Kennen.
Dreams, though, if he goes down right here as the fight kicks off, it's going to be a difficult start. The fear comes out. They pull right back. They're biding their time. Warlib now moving in, trying to lock up 3 members. He's going to stun down 2. Crown trying to look for the follow-up with the Colin. Can he take anybody down? Mickey's still alive, trying to cut him down. Is going to get him. Pyrion is here. He's backing off. 1 kill going in the favor of SK. Jankos ready to go back. Wonder off to the flank, but it's just a Victor. Not going to be a big threat to those members under the tower. Absolute bloodbath.
And the key thing is that G2 are safe to do this with the Thresh and the Ezreal as long as they have their vision. The one ward that they didn't spot is the one that the Kennen was able to TP from. Otherwise, look at all of the vision control that G2 have around this area. They're trying to clear it out. They're trying to save their flanks so they can continue to push forward on this mid lane.
Important that they start to break some of these towers down to push this advantage that they have. Crownshot is here to cover the wave. No calling means it's going to take a bit longer to clear. Perkz is happy to have this back. We're going to see what his build decision is. Is he going to go for the double tier? Will he look for the Blade of the Rune King here? Again, so many people trying to leap on top of him. But now, as we look back, this is such a close play.
I also really like the confidence. You know, some teams will say, okay, our support got picked off. We don't have the numbers, let's not do this. But SK knew that this was their one opportunity. Make the most of a big cooldown like the teleport, and then force the play and see what they can get off of it. So I like Kennen, he comes in, sees that Dreams dies, he's like, we're forcing this anyway, go in now. And that's the only option that they have, because the poke is too strong from G2.
Willing to commit, willing to double down on what could have been a bad play, and you have to wonder if the LeBlanc had been there 1 or 2 seconds sooner. Could have that been 3, maybe 4 kills for SK? There's a lot of low health bars on that G2 lineup. Of course, the double magic pen coming in for LeBlanc was hit a little bit on this patch. We'll wait to see the Ludens as the next item. And Urgot sitting comfortably on 2. Rift Trail going to be crucial, and G2 in absolute control. I feel like any game we see G2 get any kind of advantage, they just snowball so effectively.
They have been slowed down a little bit. It doesn't feel like it, though, because we're seeing them still in the aggressive position now, taking the Rift Herald and probably going to use that on an inner tower. But let's not forget that Pyrian did manage to get something in the bottom side, and will still hit pretty hard on this LeBlanc, but hasn't been involved in the most recent fights.
Perkz feeling confident. They have split this lane in an awkward fashion. Ulti's not going to connect. G2 will just back off on that play. SK retreating into their own jungle.
Feels like SK lose a lot of agency on how they want to fight G2 when they don't have the TP available to them, because again, they're so reliant on that Kennen getting the flank to force this G2 Thresh Ezreal combo to actually fight them.
Ooh, the flash is coming out though. And I like that you bring that up, because SK is a team that we've seen when they're in control of the game, they look so good, they look confident, they look controlled, and when they lose a bit of control, when they start to fall behind, things do get a little bit shaky. That Kennen play, though, does show us that there is some potential there for them to look for these more aggressive plays, these turnaround plays, these riskier plays, which I think if you're watching the evolution of SK is a good sign to see.
What's nice is that when you were watching the Mad Lions, you knew that this team was intelligent with their macro plays, so they shouldn't be completely outmaneuvered by some of the more advanced or veteran teams in the LEC. In fact, you can see them here. They're responding perfectly on time for the Rift Herald. It does get its charge off, but not much else.
Definitely a few seconds off of that not happening. Good spot for G2. Perkz just wreaking havoc in the mid lane on this Ezreal, playing so confidently. Goes for the QSS. Not interested in any more damage, just wants to continue to be a nuisance. Does not want to get locked up by the Kennen or the LeBlanc, and Wonder is going to grab a tower on the bottom side. So remember, early in the game, about a 2k gold lead for SK. Now 3k in the favor of G2 alongside those 3 towers and that mountain. G2 pretty much in complete control here. You can see the individual lane differences are actually pretty staggering outside of the top lane, where Warlib still holds on to that lead.
And the scary thing is going to be in 1 minute when the Infernal Drake decides to spawn. At this point, G2 are going to feel very confident fighting it. I expect them to roll into this area and kind of pick what monster objective they're going to set their vision over. Is it going to be the Baron? I doubt it. It's probably going to be the Infernal, and how punishing that will be on Perkz' Ezreal, one of the 80 carries that maximizes the most out of that buff.
It's just miserable to play against a fed Ezreal. When he gets behind, no one cares. But when he's doing well, when he's got a 550 gold bounty, and you've now officially stacked up enough for the Muramana, does wreak havoc on the enemy bot line. They're donating the blue buff over to Perkz. Nice enough not to take it away, or nice enough to give it to him instead of the Urgot. And I think Baron, crucial point now for Oscarin. Of course, it has changed on this patch, and I'm curious to see how that's going to affect G2's strategy.
It's a little bit weaker in the early game. Let's hold on, maybe a trap. Doesn't connect.
Trap for that minion.
So the Baron buff, a bit weaker in the early game. It's still going to scale just as hard, and it's trying to give teams some advantage to fight back when they do lose control like this. So Riot trying to stop, or it feels like halt, a little bit of the snowball game that we've seen dominate the 9.1 meta.
Is 9.2 going to be a different story, is the question. For now, focus on the Infernal Drake as G2, 5 members strong here. SK ready potentially for a fight if they want to kick it off. Kennen could come in on the backside, but very difficult to approach G2.
The question was always going to be, what would SK do when G2 were taking the Infernal? Maybe they look for a cheeky steal or something like that, but they should have traded some vision.
Now they're trying to set their sights on Jankos. 2 stacks going to look for the chain CC, trying to delete the jungler, but Mickey is off to the side. Perkz is just free damage across the entire line. Here comes Warlord, but he might be a little bit too late. Now the Fear are going to get pulled back. They're just getting shredded. Not the engage SK wanted whatsoever.
The only silver lining for SK here is the fact that Selfmade's still alive, has Flash and the Smite. So as we see G2 turn towards the Baron, maybe there's a shot in hell, but frankly, SK might have just had the nail in the coffin there.
Yeah, they hammered it in themselves, sadly, and G2 apt to punish, going to continue chasing, trying to keep the jungler away. Perk trying to chase this one down. Selfmade trying to play ring around the Rosie, but they're not even focusing on the Baron anymore. He gets deleted. Free entry for G2. Warlib, ultimate up and available. He needs to try to find something here, but Wonder's such a confident duelist at this point in the game. Perk's coming over the wall. Warlib All but guaranteed to die here. Here comes the ultimate running for his life. The flash! Within an inch of his life, Baron will fall in the favor of G2.
But that is just the consolation prize that SK get out with Warlib's life. Like you're saying, the Baron over to G2. Yes, the Baron changes have gone on to 9.2. It's not as powerful as it once was. But SK, they're a little bit white knuckle right now. They really have to hang on because G2 are snowballing this game so far out of control. Just the damage that Ezreal ult did was disgusting.
I mean, if you're going to line up for Perks, he's going to happily take the shot. And sadly, this was all brought about on an SK engage. You have to wonder, why are they engaging on the Sejuani of all members? It feels like they just capitalized on the first opportunity they saw.
And I feel like the moment is that SK need to go back to this VOD, and when G2 walked to the Infernal, decide, what did we do with our time there? We were never going to be able to fight them. Why didn't we grab control over the vision around the Baron and the mid area to not fall into a flank like that?
Feels like desperation. Feels like they weren't entirely sure what they needed to be doing. But Pyrian now on the flank. Maybe they look for a little bit more here. Warlip here as well. Holding off on the fight.
Here comes Warlip.
Trying to pull back. That's going to be the cannon ultimate. Does stun down. Perks instantly taken out. That's the shutdown. Maybe they can get a little bit more, but Caps is on the backside. He's rolling right in onto Crown Shot. The Urgot is just too strong at this point in the game. They cut through him all too easily, and Warlip is running through the hills. G2, too strong in these fights.
Just the meat grinder right there. They walked it through him with so many members down. I think G2 can actually just push for the win here.
And Wonder's just saying, you're not even going to get back to your base. You're going to spend the full 8 seconds backing. Inhibitor down, 4 members here in the mid lane. Only Perks dropped in the fight for 3 members of SK. Pyrian, 1 man versus the world, 1 LeBlanc, nonetheless trying to dash his way through. Cap flying in, ready to follow up here. Trying to take him down. CC does connect on the gravity field. They want to cut through the LeBlanc. They are going to be able to take him down. The hook goes in onto Warlip. That's going to be it. That is all she wrote. SK starting strong, but things potentially turning back. The wave crashes in. Dreams wants to keep this fight going. Knows that the longer it goes, the more likely it is to go in their team's favor. Crown Shot is here as well. Maybe this is the point to turn for SK. Crown Shot firing in. Gravity Field not quite going to connect. Dreams, though, now caught out in no man's land. Backing off as Wonder goes on a killing spree. Funneling in one at a time. G2 now set their sights on the Nexus. Not a lot of hope left. The classic G2 maneuver. They move in. They're just looking to make these guys feel like they've lost it all. Crown Shot trying to flee, trying to get something back. Kicked into the team. They will get one, but G2 now realizing the end is in sight will just focus the Nexus and take down SK.
And it looked good for a moment for SK. Some of the kills going back and forth. The first blood into Pyrian, like, okay, maybe someone could go toe-to-toe with this G2 squad, but it felt like the game face turned on. Caps had a huge roam across the map and just single-handedly tipped the scales for every single lane. And then once G2 are ahead, they just smash you.
Absolutely the case. In a brutal circumstance for sure. You feel like there were sparks there from SK, but they could just never get a fire started. Not quite enough to swing things truly in their favor at any point.
I do feel like I want to compliment that SK felt, okay, this is our composition. We know that we need to go in. We know that we need these flanks with the cannon ultimate. We're behind, but we must do something because we'll just get outscaled. So I like the fact that, yeah, maybe it felt like they threw because they lost so quickly, but they were just trying to be proactive. They were trying to make sense of, they're just going to win one way or another, or at some point in this game, let's see if we can turn it and make them lose. Let's see if we can outplay them on this team fight.
And hey, better to take the chance than to die slowly. We've seen plenty of teams do that up against G2. But they remain undefeated, 5-0 at the top of the LEC standings. An improvement, I think, from SK in some of the areas we were looking for. Saw more proactive plays in some of those key situations where we hadn't in past weeks.
Looked like they were trying to play around Pyrian. It felt like the game plan was, we're afraid of Caps, see if we can do to shut him down. Can't shut down Caps.
It does start to feel impossible when you see the XL game, and now you see this game as well. But looking back, smiles across the faces of G2, feeling good as they move forward into the rest of the split. Have to wonder who can contest them. Maybe Misfits?
I mean, I think the most terrifying thing about G2
Maybe
is,
Vitality.
Again, it almost feels like they're never challenged, that they very rarely have to show you that game face. You know, you see them take the stage, get set, it's all jovial, laughing, smiles, happy, and even when it starts to feel like a little bit pressure, people think back to that XL game, maybe a couple of moments in this SK game, you never feel scared for G2. It feels like they're still always in control, or they